Hi, if you're in the market for a Dyson cordless vacuum, it can be really difficult knowing which one to go for, because as you can see, Dyson do have a good range to choose from. So what I thought I'd do is I'd show you the differences between all the models, things like the runtime, the capacity of the bin. There's a whole load of other things I'll talk about as well. But all I'd normally do is I'd normally say subscribe to my YouTube channel, just give us a quick thumbs up. What I do is I talk about things like household appliances, cordless vacuums I do specialise in, and there's normally a bit of tech in there. So just click the subscribe button, then we'll carry on. So at this time of recording, then this is the range that Dyson offer in their cordless vacuums. I almost feel like I need to introduce everyone. So I'll just start off with the little one on the side here. So this is the Micro 1.5 kilogram. This is quite a new addition to the range. I'll be honest, we've not had much feedback on this one yet, so it'll be interesting to see how this one goes. Then you go into some of the mainstay models, the V7. This is one of our most popular models. Then we've got the V8, we've got the V10, the V11, and then on the right hand side here we've got the outsize absolute. Now with the V11, I know this is soon to be changed over to the V15, but a lot of the features and benefits to show you are pretty much the same between the two models. One of the most commonly asked questions when people are buying a cordless vacuum is how long can you vacuum for? Or how long is the runtime on the vacuum? So that's something that does vary a huge amount on these. What you tend to find is we start with the little micro, this is 20-minute runtime. Then on the V7 you go up to 30 minutes. On the V8 it's up to 40 minutes. On the V10 and the V11 it's up to 60 minutes. And on the big boy on the right hand side here, the outsize absolute, you're up to 120 minutes. So in theory you can vacuum for up to 2 hours. So that could be a decision as to which one to go for from the word go, just the runtime. But what you will tend to find is that on a lot of the vacuums, I'll just show you on here, that you have got different power selections. So this is the, it says the max, and then you've got the minimum suction here. I'll just show you what difference it makes. So you can hear the difference in the suction on its own. And basically what that does, so any of these run times are quoted for the minimum suction. So if we're saying about 40 minutes on the V8, then that will be the minimum suction that you can get. Now some customers for some reason demand using their cleaner on maximum suction all the time. They think that using the minimum suction isn't going to do the job properly. And if you're one of those people, then what you need to look at is the runtime that you're going to get if you're using it on the maximum suction. So on the whole, you'll get 6 minutes out of the micro, 7 minutes on the V7, 8 minutes on the V8, then it's 12 minutes on the V10, 12 minutes on the V11, and then 24 minutes on the outsize absolute. So that's something I mention because a lot of people know about the run times for the minimum suction, so you know that that's 60-minute runtime, but not many people will be aware that it's only got 12 minutes on the maximum suction. As far as the charging time on the vacuums, it is something that I feel is quite important. I wouldn't say it's one of the main factors when buying a vacuum. The charging times on these vacuums vary between 3.5 to 5 hours. I suppose the reason I say it's not too important because a lot of these models do come with this, which is a wall bracket. It doesn't come with this stand behind the vacuum, but like this comes with the wall bracket. So in theory, if you use that wall bracket to put the vacuum onto, we always recommend trying to put the charger within that. So in theory, when you're storing the vacuum, it's charging anyway. So that's why I feel that the actual charging time isn't too important. I suppose if you have got a big house to do, and when it's fully charged, if you wanted to vacuum straight away, then it is, but for the majority of people, it's not high on the agenda. So the next difference I'll talk about is the bin capacity of the vacuums. Again, like the runtime, this varies a huge amount. As we start off with the cheeky little Dyson Micro, then on this one, you've only got 0.2 litre capacity. What I will do is I'll show you how to empty these in a moment. So we start off with that, so we've got 0.2 litres on the V7 and the V8. So on these ones you're looking at 0.54 litres, so it's more than twice the capacity of the little micro. As you go up to the V10 and the V11, it's 0.76 litres, and then as you go up to the big boy on the right hand side here, the outsize absolute, and this one is 1.9 litres. So huge capacity. If you have got a big house, or if you do a lot of vacuuming, then that could be the one to go for. So as far as how to empty them, again, they do vary. On the micro, you've got a little handle underneath here. So quite a few of these are used in a showroom as to demonstrate, to show customers. So you will find that there's some dirt in here. But on this one, you've got a little handle underneath, and that's how you empty that one. As we go to, well, the V7 and the V8, they are the same. I'll just show you on this one. It is a slightly different design on this. You've got a handle on the top, so all you do is you pull that, and then the flap opens underneath. And then to shut it, then all you do is you press that underneath. Just while I'm talking about these, I have done quite a few cleaning videos. Just check out some of the other videos that I've done. Majority of these models I've actually done a full length cleaning video on how to maintain them as well. A lot of these are quite easy. I suppose for the majority of the time, what we'd recommend is cleaning the filters. That's something I'll talk about as well. But just giving them a wipe out inside. What you can find is they're quite easy to take apart to give them a good clean. As you go over to the V10 and the V11, it uses the same bin design. So again, you've got the handle underneath, which is a similar design to the micro, and all you do is you press that. Got a whole load of dirt on the floor now. That just comes back up like that. And as we go over to the outsize, then again, similar principle, just in a bigger fashion. Let's just take that off, make it a little bit easier. So again, you've got the handle underneath here, and then you just push that down. The whole bin moves down, and then you just push it back up, and then push the lid up. So the next thing to mention are the air watts of the vacuum, and this is really like the suction. So it's the suction capability of the vacuum. Now what you find is that as we start off with the micro 1.5, that's got 50 air watts. As you go up to the V7, then that one's got 100 air watts, so twice the number of air watts to the little micro. Then as you go up to the V8, you've got 115, 150, 185, and then as you go up to the outsize, that's 220. So again, it does make a huge difference to the actual suction of the vacuum, and generally what you'll find is that as you go up in the range, that the pickup performance is better as well. So far with the comparisons I've done, we've been talking about things like the runtime, bin capacity. It's very much leaning towards this end where you're thinking, well, I want a longer runtime, I want a bigger bin capacity. But something else that a lot of people look at when you're buying any cordless vacuum, not just Dyson, is the weight of the cleaner. For some people, the weight of it is a really high priority. For some people, it's higher than the runtime and the bin capacity. So what you will find is that some people will immediately go to the lighter, smaller ones rather than the big ones like over the outsize in the corner here. So with that in mind, that's really why Dyson have come up with the little micro 1.5 kilogram, and as it says, it's 1.5 kilograms, so very lightweight. What you'll find is I'd always recommend when you're going to buy a vacuum, try them out. This is what we do. As a company, we have them, they're all charged up, they're all ready to go. That's why a lot of the bins are dirty, because we let people try them out in the showroom. And the advantage is that you get to see, is it as lightweight as you want? Because for some people you'll think, well, perhaps 4 kilograms is okay, but in reality, something like 4 kilograms could be quite heavy for you. So as far as the weights go, clearly the 1.5 is 1.5 kilograms, as it says in the name. Then you go to the V7, which is 2.3 kilograms, 2.6, 2.7, 3.05, then 3.56 for the outsize absolute. So as you can see, the weights do vary a huge amount. I know it doesn't sound a huge amount, going even from 1.5 up to around 3.5 kilograms, but what you'll find is when you're actually using it, it does feel a lot heavier. So something else I'll mention, which isn't really a comparison, but it's something that is talked about quite a bit when people are buying a vacuum, is the on and off switch, or the trigger, as I suppose Dyson will call it. I'll just show you on this one. on the V8, because this is pretty much standard across the range. So what Dyson have done for a long time is they've had the trigger based system like that, so you just hold your finger on the trigger and that operates the vacuum. Now in itself that works fine and it's a brilliant design. The reason Dyson have stuck with that is that what they claim is that when you're vacuuming, if there's a little area that you don't need to vacuum, you take your finger off and that will save that section of the runtime. Now personally I do agree with that. Quite a few other brands have gone the other way. They've got a physical on and off switch, and it's something that quite a few people do quite like, having a proper on and off switch as opposed to the trigger. I only mention this because what Dyson have done on the new one, so on the Micro 1.5, is they have come up with that. So you have got the option for a proper on and off switch, so you don't have to keep your finger on the trigger, which again is a good design. So if you are say elderly, or if you suffer with your hands and you can't keep your finger on the trigger, then that could be something to look out for. Also you will notice, hopefully you heard at the end there, I'll just show you that again. There's like a little boing noise, and don't be alarmed, that is normal. That's again something that we get quite a few questions about. Is that the right sound? But yes, it is. So something I did touch upon earlier is the maintenance of the vacuums. How easy are they to clean and maintain and look after? Now I did mention that I have got some other videos on my YouTube channel about how to clean them, but I suppose one important thing is to look after the filters on the vacuum. So across the range, I'll just show you the filters on these. So on the Micro, you've just got the one filter at the back here. So you've just got the one washable filter, and I'm really pleased that Dyson have kept with washable filters. There's nothing worse than having to replace them all the time. I must admit most brands have gone to washable filters now. The only thing I'll comment on, and I do mention it in all of my videos, is to make sure that once you've washed it, to make sure it's completely and utterly dry. We have had people where they haven't let it dry properly, they go and put it back in the vacuum when it's still damp, and it will damage the motor, and that won't be covered under any manufacturer's warranty. So I suppose with that in mind, I do recommend buying a spare filter when you buy the vacuum. The reason for that is that what you can do is you can take that filter out, wash it, let it dry for 24-48 hours properly, and in the meantime you can put your other filter on the vacuum and still vacuum away. So that's the one on the 1.5 kilogram. As far as the V7 and the V8, it's the same concept. So that just uses that filter, and again you can wash that as well. All of those just twist off, and also what you'll find is you've got one in the middle. All of these filters are readily available, so these are quite easy to get hold of as well if you needed to replace it. As you go to the V10, then it's a similar design. As you can see from here, that could do with a bit of a wash now. And then as you go to just pop that on, the V11 is a similar design. It's just a slightly different filter to the V10. So that's got a hollow central part in there, and then it's a very similar design but just a slightly bigger one as you go to the outsize. So although the filters do vary a little bit as you go across the range, the actual way that you put the filter on and take it off and wash it is pretty much the same across the different models. So really the next thing to talk about are the floor heads that come with the vacuums. Now I'll go into the tools and accessories that they come with in a minute, but really what I wanted to do was to emphasise the size of them. The reason I mentioned the size, and first of all, as you go to the 1.5, so the width of that one is around 20 centimetres. Then on the V7, V8, V10, V11, they're all pretty much the same size at 25 centimetres. And then as you go to the outsize absolute, then on this one it's 32 centimetres. So if you're comparing them, you know, they do vary a huge amount. And the main reason I mention that is if you have got a big room or a big area to vacuum, then if you're going to go for the little 1.5 kilogram, it's going to take you a lot longer to vacuum compared to the outsize. So when you're looking at the different Dyson models, you will notice that they have different names as well. So as well as being a V7 or V8, it has another name after it. So it could be Animal or Absolute. There are also other like special edition models that Dyson come out with on the odd occasion. But what this normally determines are the tools and accessories that come with the vacuum. Now all I want to do here is just to give you a brief overview of some of the tools and accessories that the Dysons come with. Because you could find that, for example, going from the V7 Animal up to the Absolute, it could be worth paying the difference because that extra couple of tools in there could be worth it for you. So these two tools tend to be pretty standard with the majority of these models. So you've got the standard crevice tool, and then you've got this is called the combination tool. So this is where you've got like a soft dusting brush, and then once you press the button, then that changes into like a little upholstery tool. So those two tools do tend to be fairly standard. You've got this one, which is the soft dusting brush on its own. Then you've got this one. So this, well, there's a couple of tools like this. The first one is a mini motorised head, again that is fairly standard, and that's good. So if you're going to change it into a handheld unit, I'll just show you what I mean by that. So if you're going to change it into a handheld, which is good for using it for things like the stairs, or if you're going to vacuum your car, then what you can do is you can just pop one of the tools on there and go and use it like that. So a standard, a lot of these do come with the motorised head, and that's a rotating brush. That's something I'd always recommend, because what you'll find is that if you've got a rotating brush, especially on a carpet, then the pickup performance is going to be really good. Now what Dyson have come up with, and this tool itself is the anti-tangle screw tool. This is the hair screw tool. This is slightly different from the motorised head. So although it does rotate, then what this will do is it stops any hair getting tangled around it. Now this is something that at the moment, at this time of recording, is quite new to the range, but I have heard that they are starting to introduce it into other models as well. Now for some of the models, what they're doing is they're actually combining tools into one. This is on the little micro. So what they've done is they've decided to combine the crevice tool and the soft dusting brush into one. And I just think that's a good idea. I suppose it saves having two separate tools. Something else to look out for is this. This is the laser detect tool. Now this particular tool is actually on the Outsize Absolute, and also it's on the V15 detect. So that model's around at the moment. But the main advantage of this type of tool is that what it will do is it will actually shine a laser on the floor, and it just helps you to see where the dirt particles are. It is something that if you have a look at, again, in the demonstration I did on that, and it is really good. It's a good idea. What you'll also find is that they've combined it with the fluffy head. Now Dyson make a lot of different type of heads for the vacuums. I suppose you've got things like the torque drive, the direct drive head, there's a high torque head. So there's a lot of different variants that Dyson come up with. But the fluffy head, and as you see here, it's called the fluffy head because it's a fluffy head. And this is really good for larger particles. I suppose what Dyson do is in a lot of their advertising, they show it with things like breakfast cereal, which are bigger particles, which can be quite difficult to pick up with a standard vacuum. So the fluffy head is mainly on the Absolute models. So you will find that within the ranges, so the V7 Absolute, sometimes the V8 Absolute is around. At the moment it's not actually in production, but again Dyson do introduce it on the odd occasion. There is the V10 Absolute, the V11 Absolute, and of course it does come with the Outsize Absolute as well. So that's mainly what makes the Absolute by adding the fluffy head in as well. For some people, they're not too fussed about it. If you've got a lot of carpets, then personally I'd recommend sticking with the torque drive heads or the direct drive heads, because I personally think that the pickup ability is better. I suppose a couple of other tools. The first one is this. This is the stubborn dirt brush. With this one, the bristles are a lot stiffer. I suppose this is good if you've got something that's sort of ground into the carpet, say a dried muddy footprint. That's normally the example I use. Then something like that is a lot better than the softer dusting brush. With the soft dusting brush, I should have mentioned earlier, but something like that is ideal for say going around a kitchen worktop where you know you don't want to scratch it. Not that these would scratch it, but I just think it's a lot better having a softer brush to go around a delicate area. The last one is this. Now this is called the reach under tool, and the idea of this, I'll just show you on here. So if you put that in the end here, and if you had a tool, I suppose mainly this will be used when you've actually got the pole or the wand on the vacuum, but I'll just show you on here. So the idea is that you press this yellow button on here, and that gives you the ability to get under, say, a bed or a sofa, and that's a really good design, especially if you struggle with your back. So it just enables it, I suppose it stops you having to bend down. So again, you just press the button, do that, and then it just enables you to vacuum under low areas. Dyson used to make something called the up top tool, which was almost that in reverse. So it just enabled you to get on top of cupboards. I'll be honest, it didn't really float anyone's boat. It wasn't really something that people used, so that's why they've gone the opposite way and come up with the reach under tool. So again, that's something that comes on some of the vacuums, not all of them, but what I'd recommend is before you buy the vacuum, just have a look at all the tools and accessories that it comes with, because you could find sometimes by paying a little bit more to go, for example, as I mentioned earlier, going from the Animal to the Absolute, there might be a tool or a couple of accessories in there that could be useful for you. Now, something that can be really frustrating is when you're vacuuming away, you're not sure how long you've got left of the battery. Now, especially as you're going at this end, when you're looking at the 20 or 30 minutes, or if you're on the maximum suction, where you've only got a handful of minutes to vacuum, then ideally what you want to know is how long you've got left to vacuum. Because there's nothing more annoying than just having a couple of square meters and then it runs out. So what Dyson have done is on some of the models, you've got a little light indicator. I'll just show you on here. So just here, you just got a little light indicator, and that'll give you a rough idea as to how much time you've got left. So you don't know exactly, but it might just be a couple of minutes where it starts to flash, and then that's really where it needs to be recharged. But what Dyson have done is on some of the higher end models, mainly as you get up to the V11, V15 and then the outsize Absolute, then it gives you a proper indication as to how long you've got left. And what they've done is they've come up with this little display here. First of all, you can change the setting. This is how you change the setting, and you've got the boost option, as they call it. But what I'll do is I'll just show you on the display here, and it will actually show you the time remaining for the vacuuming. So I suppose really depending on the setting that you've got it on. I probably won't get too close because at the moment, because of the noise of the vacuum that's quite close to the microphone. I still love that boing at the end. I think it's brilliant. So as you can see there, as I was pressing the button, the times were changing quite a lot. It did vary, and then as we end up on the boost, that's down to 9 minutes 48. So that basically means that on a full charge, that at the moment with a V11 that you'd get around 9 minutes, and that will vary. I know some of the times do vary depending on the tools and accessories that you're using. If you are going to use it as a handheld, for example with a crevice tool, then you'll be able to get a much longer run time than if you're going to use it on the floor with one of the, say, the torque heads. So I hope you found it useful, some of the differences across the Dyson cordless models, starting off with the cheeky little micro 1.5 kilogram, to the V7, the V8, the V10, the V11 or V15, which is just coming out, and the outsize Absolute. So I suppose what I wanted to do was just to give you an overview of the differences between the models. I suppose hopefully it's given you a bit more of an informed decision as to which one to go for. You might find that if weight is really high priority for you, then something like the 1.5 is the one to go for. If you're into things like runtime and bin capacity, then really need to be looking at this end of the range. But again, I suppose a lot of the time it will boil down to price. I mean, at this time of recording, as you're at this end of the market, then they vary between £250 and £300. And then as you're into this end of the market, then you're into the realms of £500–600. So you are doubling in price as you go from one end to the other. So all I'd normally ask is please subscribe to my YouTube channel, just give us a quick thumbs up and leave any comments below. I'd always ask for comments, whether it's good or bad, about the video. Hopefully I've covered pretty much everything as far as the differences between the vacuums. I know something that some people will comment on is they wanted to see them in action. Generally, as you go up through the range, as I mentioned about the air watts earlier, and also the performance of the vacuums, they do get better as you go up through the range. So if you're after one that is a really good performer, then personally I'd recommend looking at this end of the range. But anyway, if you haven't got any comments or if you've got any questions on the vacuums, then again pop it in the comments, because there's quite a lot to cover with all of these. So if you've got any questions or any queries about them, then just pop it in the comments below and I'll get back to you. Also, if you have got one of these vacuums, it doesn't matter which one, or it could even be one of the older cordless vacuums that Dyson have made, then let me know what you think about it, because I'd always appreciate the feedback, whether it's positive or negative. I'd always like to hear what you think to them. Anyway, thanks for watching.